All right, we're back. Action.
Uh,
There you go.
Shit.
There you
All
go.
right. Yeah, nothing. What do I say? So what do I say then? Just start talking?
Yeah, I say action. Like, I don't know. Imagine you're an actor and I say action and you say, hey, welcome to the show or whatever.
All right. It really puts the responsibility on me to think of something new each time, Like you just say action and then I gotta be like, hey, we're back and we're cooking and yeah.
It's a good point. It makes more sense for me to do that because I'm closer to like fully functional human.
Sure. I'll give you that. I'm not. Yeah. I ate Amy's soup. You know an Amy's soup. You know the can.
I mean, it's a brand. I mean, what kind of soup? It's not just Amy's. It's
It
Amy's
was a
chicken
mushroom.
soup.
It was mushroom.
Ugh,
I ate
you
it
are a
yesterday.
mushroom.
I ate it cold. I didn't even warm it up.
But you're in a hotel with a kitchen.
I coulda, and I didn't.
We just recreated the end of Schindler's List.
I could have done it.
One more soup.
Don't you think he kind of sounds when he starts crying? I always thought. I mean, that's a very moving scene, but no, he's kind of bragging a little. You know what I mean? He's kind of a humble brag. He's like, I could have saved more Jews. It's like a little obnoxious, It's like, we get it. You're a great person. You know what I mean? But like,
you're wrong. What a bad interpretation that
no,
is.
he's just like, I could have done more. And everyone's like, no, you're amazing. It's kind of fishing for compliments. But when he starts crying, do you feel like he sounds a little like the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz? Like,
I'm not sure. I got to check the tape, but there's part of me that thinks when we talked about Schindler's List, I said that to you.
The Cowardly Lion?
Yeah.
I've been thinking this for years.
All right, then maybe we both just have the same thought, and I'm thinking of somebody else. But
because he goes,
Yeah,
he's like,
no.
it sounds like the lion.
I had the wrong reaction because my reaction is you took this from me and you're giving it back to me. But maybe my could be, wow, I've been thinking the same thing because the first time I saw it, I thought that.
Yeah, you should be like, oh my God, you're articulating my thoughts. Instead, you're like, you fucking hack, thief, piece of shit.
I don't know. I'm gonna check the tapes, but no, completely. But also, your interpretation is just insane. I mean, he has regret. He could have done more. He feels guilty.
If I was like, oh, I gave so much money to charity, but I could have given more, wouldn't you be like a little annoyed? If I made it as like I feel like that's every Facebook post now.
I guess. I mean, that moment he's realizing how greedy he's been, and he could have saved more people. He's feeling horrible about it.
Well, we all know he's a great guy. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Schindler's List, though we should do a Holocaust episode.
Oh yeah, you keep pushing for the Holocaust episode. I won't forget.
Never forget. The Pianist, Schindler's List, and we got to put Son of Saul.
Do you feel? Sure, yes. But I had another thought. Son of Saul, isn't that a fucking TV show with Bob Odenkirk?
No, that's the son of. No, that's Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, which I heard is better than Breaking Bad, which I hated Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
so
Breaking Bad sucks. A fucking corny ass show. People,
Oh,
it's the greatest show ever. Shut the fuck up.
That's exactly how I feel about Sopranos.
But you're wrong.
Why?
Completely.
Maybe you're wrong. You're wrong about Breaking Bad.
What's the chances that everyone is wrong about Sopranos but you? What are the odds of that?
Well, we've talked about this before. I've got, and you people agree now with my assessment, and I just don't like what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think if you like forced yourself, you would find amazing stuff. But Breaking Bad is just like, it's one of those. It's just a corny. It's one of those shows where like he's interesting, but everyone else in it is a boring fucking cartoon.
That's how I feel about Sopranos. It's like Sopranos is so cartoony. I mean, we've had this conversation and everywhere, but it's just so cartoon. I mean, Polly Walnuts is a cartoon, and it ruins the entire program.
But wait, you had a thought. I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, that's the name of the show, really.
What
was it? It was before Schindler's List. Oh, don't you think sometimes, and this might get political, or whatever, so it'll be weird. But I saw a guy the other day, a big, like bulky, kind of like bro guy with like Oakley sunglasses and like one of these American flag shirt that's like the torn flag, and and it says, it said September 11th. Do not forget. And sometimes it feels like the 9/11 do not forget, always remember thing feels like, hey, like remember these people that we lost. Right. But sometimes you see people wearing a shirt and it feels like, hey, don't forget these fucking Muslims.
Oh,
you know what I mean? That was the first time I've ever seen it. I read it like, hey, dude,
Well, I think it goes into this thing now that's very weird, where when you see an American flag, you're like, oh, what a fucking Trump supporter Nazi piece of shit, which is such a weird thing to be like, that's the flag of our country. And you see it and you're like, what a bigot. So I think when you see the flag and then you say never, it's a weird, I'm not saying it's right, but there is
Of
this weird
course.
thing. But when you see a flag and the slogan or what, not the catchphrase or whatever, I guess that's inappropriate, or whatever the jingle for the tragedy, whatever the jingle PR thing is, and the American flag torn, you think, yeah, this guy probably hates Muslims.
It didn't feel like remember the victims. It felt like don't be forgetting what happened.
Right. But also,
Fucking
like,
let these people.
the Holocaust is never again. That's the
Right.
phrase for that. And then 9/11 is what?
Never forget.
But that's that's like so close. It's a little hacky. I feel like ironically they forgotten the Holocaust in its slogan
Well,
because they're doing something so similar.
well, I think, and it might be a little dismissive. I mean, we're going to really lose everybody here, but it's possibly a little dismissive to the Holocaust because it's like, hey, basically, we're putting it on par with the Holocaust.
Yeah, which is like,
which is numbers. Of course, people, it's an attack on the homeland, and I don't want to dismiss the
No.
tragedy of 9/11, but one is 6 million and one is like 2,800. So it's
the Holocaust is like The Godfather, and 9/11 is like, it's like a good movie. It's
a
like
Bronx
Little Miss
Tale.
Sunshine, a Bronx Tale. Yeah, I should have. I don't know why I didn't go Bob for that. Yeah, it's the Holocaust is The Godfather. 9/11 is no, I wouldn't say better than Bronx. It's Donnie Brasco.
It's way better than Bronx Tale. Yeah,
Donnie Brasco, right?
it's
That's
got to be
saying it
better
right,
than. I mean,
Brasco?
we're gonna really get some heat if we don't make it a little bit more significant. Oh, you froze. That's God.
What? Yeah, that's God gonna go. All right. Anyway, yeah, my internet might be a little fucked because I'm in a hotel. But we'll
Oh
try it,
shit!
you
I'm
know.
turning my Wi-Fi off my phone. It wasn't even on my phone. I'm acting like
okay.
it might be my fault, but I'm sure it's you.
Anyway, what do we? Let's get into this.
Oh, yeah.
We've,
It's gonna
now
say-
that we've lost all Jews and Trump people.
It's literally gonna say, well, that. By the way, the American flag thing, just real quick, that is just great politics. The right has made it. They're so much better politically than the
Mhm.
left. They did that. They slowly over time took patriotism and the flag. That's theirs.
Right. I know.
They're
they
like,
took
we're
it,
the
yeah.
patriotic people, and if you're on the left, you hate America. And that was a really good move that they pulled. You hate America, and we love America, and that's pretty amazing. Meanwhile, both sides have plenty to hate. Like people on the right, they hate a lot of stuff about the left, which is in America. So I think
Well-
both sides hate America equally.
Yeah, and patriotism is tough because you kind of want to be like, you kind of want. It's hard to have that nuance where you want to be like, I think we should help each other and be a community, but at the same time, you know, deep down, it's all kind of made up. You know, you got to have like both at the same time. It's hard to express that. You know, patriotism doesn't fully do it. You know, but anyway.
But one last story. I miss
Yeah.
I miss this idea of I wish there was. I'm like one of these people that wishes there was more patriotism, like the old days, the Olympics and stuff, where you got really into it. And I'll just tell this story before because it's a beautiful
Yeah.
story and it makes me
Tell it.
emotional. And then we'll talk about Wes Anderson's horse shit. But
All right, anyway, that's a joke.
My it doesn't matter her relationship. My mother's best friend, who I called my aunt, she's dead now, but she was on a cruise in the Mediterranean in July of '69 when we landed on the moon, and they were all out on the deck, and there was an announcement, and they said, "Ladies and gentlemen," over the whole ship, they said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Americans have landed on the moon," and everyone cheered, and they said, "If there are any Americans on board, please stand and be recognized." And they were the only Americans on the whole boat, and they stood up, and everybody gave them a standing ovation. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's beautiful. It makes me sad now because I'm like, this is how much corporations have taken over the government. Like now, it's just Amazon flying to the to outer space. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, everybody, Amazon. If you work for Amazon, stand up and be proud
It's really funny, and that's a bit.
for your company that doesn't give you that doesn't keep you from doing a union. Yeah, is that a bit? Maybe I'll do that tonight.
That's a pretty good bit. But anyways, the right is. I always hear from everyone on the right, who I have many friends, are always like, America's turned to shit. But then they're the
Yeah.
patriotic ones. So I don't. It doesn't always add up.
It's all empty and none of it means anything. But
We should cut this and make it a bonus for the Patreon.
it's pretty good. But also, yeah. Wait,
It's nothing to do
are you
with
saying
film.
cut it because it's bad or good?
I'm saying because it's nothing to do with Wes Anderson. Like, people are gonna be like, "Oh, these two guys are talking about Wes Anderson," and we're just talking about 9/11 and Schindler's List, and we've triggered everybody.
We have a long intro. Let's talk Wes Anderson because this was interesting to go back. Now, are these two of your movies you watch compulsively on loop still? Like, is this part of the Goodfellas loop?
Not still. I hadn't watched these in a long time, and I feel like people like when we have a spicy disagreement. But just from your one text, you alluded to something that I'm like, oh, maybe we're gonna agree completely again.
We might.
But I felt like we watched these two movies, two of my favorite movies. To me, one held up perfectly, and I think is a genuine masterpiece, and the other one I was like, ugh, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with.
I'm
But
excited to see if we have similar.
I still like it. But which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's start Rushmore, right? We got to start Rushmore chronologically.
Okay, let's talk Rushmore. I took my notes upside down, so I got to flip my book around. But yeah, I got a lot of notes, a lot of stuff.
I mean, I don't know where to begin with this. Rushmore, like when we talk about the movies that like are such a great influence and like the characters that are so iconic. You got, Reese Witherspoon from Election, the dude from Big Lebowski, these 90s characters. Max Fisher is just one of the most, like, so many characters. You're just like, that's just Max Fisher. You write characters, you're like, it's all just under that umbrella. It's just one of the most fucking iconic characters ever.
Amazing character. And what's amazing about this movie, so many things are amazing about this movie. First of all, it just moves so quickly. The movie is like under an hour and a half. It's like an hour and 28 minutes.
I know.
It's absolutely hilarious. The comedy holds up, and it's Wes Anderson at this point. Bottle Rocket, we should talk about Bottle Rocket too, which is amazing and great, and I love it. And then Rushmore is like a masterpiece. Second film out.
Yes.
And his best film to me by far. I talk about this a lot.
Yes, 100%.
Were written by Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson, and they have some heart. There's some poignancy to it. It's touching.
Get that Wilson back. Get him back into the fucking movie. Yeah, he might be the genius behind it all.
It's amazing because Owen Wilson is known as kind of this goofball, silly actor who went on to like do Wedding Crashers, which I kind of hate, and this other goofball stuff. But he feels like the heart in these movies because once he's been gone, there's not nearly anything as poignant. And this movie is so touching to me. I mean, I was like crying. I'm dealing with some stuff, whatever. I haven't watched this movie in a while, but it makes me emotional. I can talk about all the reasons it makes me emotional, but what I love about this movie, and Royal Tenenbaums tries to do the same and pulls it off with some success, but it starts off as these really quirky, funny, weird characters that are interesting and funny and lovable, and slowly reveals that they're really dark and disturbed people.
And it's so much about grief, which you don't, because here's the thing, like watching this as a kid, this movie is my childhood. You know what I mean? Watching this as a kid.
Youth, not childhood.
Youth, whatever. Youth. Watching as a kid. I saw it in theaters in high school. And I felt so much like Max Fisher. I used to write plays and be excited about life. And watching him now, he is adolescence. He is that excitement, that energy, that passion. But when I watched it as a kid, I related to him, and I'm watching it from his perspective. So it's just funny, it's fun. But now I'm watching it from Bill Murray's perspective. I am now Bill Murray, and it's so profound watching it from his perspective as this kind of sadder, older person watching the excitement of youth, Yeah. And it's such a more profound movie watching it as you get older, because you're like, oh, I'm watching like the excitement of youth and then being an older person. Because Bruce Willis is like, I'm Bruce Willis. Bill Murray is brought back to life by him,
Right. Yeah.
And I'm brought back to life watching the movie. So I'm like, from his perspective, it's interesting to watch now.
And like you said, I mean, it's so much about grief. Obviously, like so Max can't get over his mother's death, and obviously Rosemary can't get over her husband's death. And Herman, we're not exactly sure. He's just a sad guy. I mean, I guess he's got in a loveless marriage, and he hates his sons. And I think also he just resents so much that he comes from a blue collar place, and now his sons are these rich, privileged kids, and he just can't. He can't abide by it. I mean, he hates rich people, and he's become that. So he's a self-hating rich person who's raising rich children.
Yeah, when you're a self-made guy, it's okay, but your children are now the people you hate. Exactly. So it's like they have the privilege you never had, and you fucking hate them. and which is his speech in the beginning at the school is just hilarious. Like he's just like, take aim at the rich kids.
It's so good, and of course, we know that Max is not a rich kid because of his
Right.
reaction to it, which is so great,
Yes.
and it paints such a wonderful picture. Is that these two are so similar, and they're very
So
similar, of
similar.
course.
It's so similar. It's almost like it's his younger self. You know, he's watching his younger self who was excited about life. You know, and it is funny as you get older. You watch this movie, you're like, God, this is all about death. You don't even see it as a kid. Um, you know, and it's like, oh, Max Fisher's mom died. This woman he's in love with is filling that void from his mom, you know? He's going about it sexually, but it's his mom's void. And then you think about all the shit he does in life. It's almost like he's trying to get his mom's attention, even though she's dead. He's
What do
trying
you?
to achieve so much to like make his mom proud, even though she's not there. And then
Well,
this mom, sorry, yeah.
oh no, go ahead. I was gonna say he's like Liam Neeson. Like Liam Neeson's wife died and he just started making like 50 movies a year. Like he just has to stay occupied. So he's like, I'm a beekeeper. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And it starts off as like a joke. It's like hilarious that he has all these clubs and he's doing all these things. But then you realize, yeah, it's just he's trying to impress his mom, which of course we realize later he did get that in the most emotional moment in the movie to me. The most beautiful thing that makes me cry the most
Mhm.
is such a quick thing that you can just miss, and that he's typing on his typewriter in the cemetery and it's in a little suitcase that says Bravo Max, love mom.
Yeah.
And it's just so emotional that like he obviously wrote a one act play about Watergate in second grade, which is the best joke in the movie, I think.
So amazing.
I mean,
I mean,
that's like my favorite joke in any movie is that this kid wrote a
little
Watergate play.
a little one act a little one act about a little one act about Watergate. I mean, just that the phrasing of that is just so
It's great. And then his mother bought him a new typewriter and had it, whatever, engraved or
well.
whatever the word is, Bravo Maxi.
All right, so let's talk about I just want to talk about so many things right now. Oh yeah, so it's so first of all, just once again, just talk about how brilliant the line a little one act about Watergate is. The idea that he's saying it as if it's one of his minor works.
Right.
15 and he goes, wrote what I wrote. It's just a little one act. Like he has all these other 4-hour plays about Nixon and Jimmy Carter, but this is just his little one act. Like the idea of someone that young at second grade or whatever age he was talking about his own minor work is just precociously hilarious. But yes, the Bravo Max thing is such a core part. And it's so funny because as a kid, this movie is so fun and it's still so fun, but it is like we're both like just like this is so sad because it's like he got to everything he does is like he wants to hear his mom be like, that's great. And his mom's dead, so she can never say that. So he just keeps on doing more amazing things. You know what I mean? Just
Yes,
to
I
like, and
relate.
it's just such a sad. It's like, oh my God. It's like you never hear your mom's voice saying that. So you just keep on being in each other different fucking department and doing everything, you know?
Yeah, I relate to it, and my parents are alive, so it's
Me
quite touching.
too.
I mean, that's why I started sobbing at the Bravo Max because I mean I'm like I write things, I do things. I'm like I've never gotten a Bravo, Joe, but it's so touching, and also it is just so wildly dark. And like I said, it starts as like comedy, and then that whole middle phase where it becomes like this really dark, tragic thing. And also, what I never noticed before, as I guess I'm just getting older and mature, is that like Rosemary Cross is a victim. I mean, she is being like harassed by two
I
different
know.
people, like
I know.
genuinely harassed and followed. And it's you feel for her, she's still mourning the loss of this guy who like truly loved her. And meanwhile, she tries to be nice to make up for her loss and be of service. And these two people are like really fucking super creepy and literally following her around.
They're following her and they're caught in that thing that men or boys have in high school, that thing of I had dibs. You know what I mean? The I have dibs thing. Like I'm which is such a big part of high school. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm in love with that girl, and then someone else is interested in them, and like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I already told you I was in love with her. As if that means anything. As if that like you act like you feeling in love with her is somehow you being married to her and them someone having an affair. So that whole like, and she's caught in the crosshairs of just a guy who thinks he has dibs and then his friend and their betrayal. So she's caught in these boys kind of fucking immature, like toxic kind of fight, you know?
Yeah, and she has no feelings for either of them and doesn't care. I mean, eventually she grows some feelings for Herman, but it's just completely whatever you call it,
At the end,
little. So,
you know,
I don't have a smart enough word for it.
but it is like, and it once again, I mean, I'm watching this. It's like so much of my childhood. I wrote plays. I was in love with this girl who was in one of my plays, in love with her. And my friend was tried to get into her, and then I was mad at him. I thought it was a betrayal because he had a crush on her and was hanging out with her. So it's just like you're just watching your childhood here. It's just to me, I feel so connected to that. Like everyone, you know how everyone's like, I read Catcher in the Rye, and I'm just, that's me. And you're like, shut up. No one is that character. That character's weirdo, fucking creep. But like, sorry, I don't mean to bring up books, but like this
Huh?
character. Well, you do.
I read Catch in the Rye. I loved it. I was thinking about it today, as a matter of fact. And in
That's a great
fact, I
one.
had a musical duo with my friend Mike Robinson, and we were going to be called Holden Caulfield.
Oh,
So
that's a great. Yeah, it's a great time. No, it's a great book. But like, this is like, yeah, I just feel I would cut class and rehearse for plays. So it's like you don't care about school, you care about your extracurricular activities. And I was just so excited for life and falling in love with this girl and art. And it's like that's Max Fisher, and then you see fucking Bill Murray, and you're like, that's the two sides of the same. That's young youth and old age.
well, and it's funny because they're both children posing as adults.
But yes, exactly,
They're both
exactly.
completely infantile. It's funny that you're describing your connection with Max Fisher, and it's a good point time to talk about what a kind of piece of shit he is. Really, he's like
He's
he's
such a
really
piece of
vicious
shit.
and mean and cheating
Such a brat. Yeah.
and also Wes Anderson's so great. We'll get to Royal Tenenbaums later, but he's so great about writing that feeling of like wanting to be with someone you can. The funniest moment in Royal Tenenbaums, which I'll just shoot over there for a second and come back. To me, the funniest moment is when Raleigh St. Clair, Bill Murray tells Luke Wilson, I think she's having an affair.
He
You just
punches
see
the
him
glass.
fuming. He punches the window. He goes, what do you want to do? Find the guy and get him? Which I like relate to that so much in my life where you're like, who's she dating?
Well, that part's so hilarious, dude, because Bill Murray, I keep on calling him Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is so mild in Royal Tenenbaums. Like, so the part that's so funny, he breaks the window, and Bill Murray looks so scared. If I like just
It's so funny because obviously Raleigh St. Clair has no idea that this woman he married is in love with her brother. So that's what's so funny.
yeah,
The funniest part of that is the dichotomy of him being like, "Why are you so upset?" I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of like Hannah and her sisters, where she starts like screaming, like,
yeah,
"Be nice to Hannah." I mean, it's such a funny moment for him to be so because like obviously if you had a regular relationship and somebody was like, "Hey, your sister's having an affair," you wouldn't fucking smash a window. You'd be like, "Oh,
it was
geez, that's
revealing.
weird."
Yeah, I mean, and unrequited love is a big part of adolescence too. So like Rushmore, unrequited, so being into someone he'll never be with, that fantasy of love, which is it's a fantasy. What makes it so powerful is that it's not real. That's what's so it's otherworldly, and he's so consumed by this love. But then there's that moment where she's like that incredible moment where she tries to ruin it for him so she can get him out of it. Where she's like, "What would happen? We fuck? You finger me?" And he's so uncomfortable. He's like, "That's a cheap way to put it," because she's saying this isn't real. You know what I mean? And when
Right.
you even attempt to make it real, it falls apart because it's something otherworldly. But that love, it's even though it's like a fantasy, it's so overwhelming and it makes you so excited about life. And it's such a drug, but it also makes you want to kill your friend. You know what I mean? Like it
Right.
does that feeling, but that's such a huge part of life to go through that feeling in high school where you fall in love with someone who doesn't think about you that way
Right.
and all those amazing feelings you have, and then how that turns to just wanting to kill your friend. Like that's and going through that experience is one of life's initiation rites.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really does nail it, and it also brings up more mourning for this other person who he can't have, his mother. You know what I
Yes.
mean? There's two women whose love he desires and needs, and there's no way he's either going to get either of them, which he eventually gets Rosemary's affection again, but not in the way he initially wants it. And of course, his mother, there's no way. So then he starts turning to his father towards the end, which also becomes so emotional. I mean, like, what a beautiful emotional scene where he finally decides to make amends. And a lot of this feels like it's about amends. Dirk coming,
Yes.
like his amends is so beautiful.
This
And
is yeah.
bringing Bill Murray to the barber shop and finally introducing, this is my father, he's a barber. And it is about amends and acceptance, accepting that who he is.
Yes, and it's what's so this movie feels so meditative now with all the music. It feels so meditative and so like Buddhist in a way, you know? It feels like these are the stages of life. You can't control them, but this is what happens. You want something, you don't get it, you go into a narcissistic tantrum, and then you fall into depression, and then you realize life is suffering and I want to help other people. And you
Yeah.
see all the stages of that in Rushmore, you know?
Right. And like I said, it's acceptance, it's amends, and then noticing. And what happens after that, once you do that, then you start to notice what is there. And
Yeah.
Margaret Yang plays that role so well, where he's such an asshole. This woman, he doesn't even notice this woman who's great and his age and smart and just like him. I mean, she's
Yes.
cheating on her science project, and she's like this
Yes.
female version, which is a great way to show it. He doesn't connect with her until she reveals that she cheated.
She's cheating.
And then he's like, oh, interesting.
Oh
And
yeah,
of
you're a
course, like,
schemer.
Cat Stevens comes on and the whole movie changes, and it's beautiful.
Okay, so that's my favorite scene. That's my all-time favorite scene in the movie. I after watching it the other day, I think about it all the time.
The kite flying.
The kite flying. So especially lately, I've been very depressed, and like today, I woke up, I started feeling a little bit better, you know. And to me, that scene captures getting back on the saddle better than anything in any movie. The idea of her coming up to him, it's like a gray day. She comes up, she says, "You've been a jerk," and then he's looking back at the kite. And then suddenly that back in the saddle, he's been depressed and in despair. And then suddenly that Max Fisher passion comes back and he goes, "Dictate for me right now." Future flight, kite flying award, like kite flying group
Society.
or whatever, society. And watching him get back in the saddle, come back to who he is after the suffering, after the depression, he's coming back to who he is. He's stronger now. And you have the Cat Stevens. That moment is so fucking beautiful. And when you see the kite flying, the kite is the perfect metaphor for that moment, because it's like he's growing and he's changing, but it's also that's how life works. It's you're caught in the winds of time and you get back and you come back up again. It's the kite makes it this Buddhist thing. It's not like I've decided to suddenly change. This is the stages of life. It's out of your control in a way. You get your ass kicked and then you come back stronger, and he's back to creating a new society. Because every time I get depressed, I have no interest in life. I don't care about the shit I'm writing. And then one day I drink that cup of coffee and I start getting happy again, and I start writing jokes again, and I start feeling alive again. And that's that moment. I can't think of any movie that captures that moment better than that moment.
No, I just went through
Becoming
it.
yourself again. Yeah.
I just went through it because you depressed me for like 3 days, but I came out of it. No thanks to you, but no. And also, and then this idea of like, all right, when he goes and gets Herman, and he goes, all right, we're gonna build this thing, and that's gonna win Rosemary back. And of course, it doesn't work out, but it still does work out towards the end. And I forgot this is what I wanted to talk about, and I'm like, I was like, she's longing the death of her husband. He lost his mother, and this never really was present in my mind as much as it was this time, is that because it's such a great joke when he's like, "You were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken," and he's like, "Were you in the shit?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was in the shit." This guy is like shell-shocked. He's got horrible PTSD.
Yes.
He watched all this death and loss, and which is a huge part of why he's this empty hole of a man. Is just he's been through literal hell, which is such an amazing thing, because there's this great thing of like it depicts Vietnam so well in a way that movies don't typically do in war movies. Like you just see this broken shell of a man who has success, but he's just this empty guy who just doesn't give a fuck about anything and hates himself. And it's because of what he's been through in the scene. And that is so beautiful at the end when he does this play and he stands up and he's sobbing, and he doesn't put the headphones on. He's reliving his experience through a high school play. And then it is genuinely emotional when he stands up with his fist, and you could see it. What an emotional ending to the play it is.
Well, it's like they all have this trauma, and throughout the movie they've come to terms with it by the end, And when he's crying at the end, he's putting his fist up. He's now come to terms a little with his trauma, And it's also the power of art, the power of art in that moment, to like to make him come to terms. It's such a beautiful part, and like I don't know, the the plays are just. I mean, it's so funny that we're talking about how moving it is because it's also like truly one of the funniest movies of all time, and we
It's a
haven't even,
great
like.
comedy. I mean, that's a great laugh right there. First of all, also so sweet how moved his dad is, which is another thing that makes me emotional. He's like, "That's my Maxie." I mean,
Yeah.
it's just amazing and so beautiful. And you realize how much support this kid has gotten from his parents. And if his mother hadn't died, how truly successful and healthy he would be. Um,
Yes.
but also talking about great jokes, it literally cuts from everybody celebrating to like this jazz playing and that little weird kid who doesn't have any lines sitting in front of on a bed just covered with naked women because they want it to be real. It's supposed to be this Vietnam guy's bunk, and it's just like what do you call it, spreads
Yeah,
of
it's
centerfolds.
well, it's. I mean, it's. I remember in high school, I put on a play, and I had there was like an action scene. I actually got like one of those starter guns, like for the races.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know those guns?
Yes, that was a runner.
Did I break up?
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Oh, did I break up? Fuck. Hello?
I can hear you.
Are we good?
Just keep going. I hear
Wait,
you.
hold on. All right. I got one of the starter guns, and I have literally a part where like in the middle it gets violent, like Pulp Fiction. He takes out the gun, and it was so loud it like terrified everyone in the audience, And that's to me like this play. It's like going so beyond. It's like he's a terrible student because he's too like he can't follow like the structure of the school, but his ambition is so amazing for just put on this play like this. And I don't know, I just think it's so hilarious. He also says the N-word in a play, which I totally forgot about. He would totally be canceled today.
Oh, I never forgot about that. That's one of my favorite parts. I mean, even in high school, even in the 90s, before everyone has gone like completely crazy, that was already hilarious. The idea of a kid saying the N-word in a high school movie is like so insane. It's not like that joke is like now you're like, what? Like that, but in 1998, that was like a LOL moment of like, wait a minute, what? This kid's just saying the N-word in a movie, in a play.
Well, I also I know I keep on bringing it back to myself, but I literally had a play in high school where the word cunt was in it like 4 times, and like a bunch of teachers like protested. I was like, like teachers refused to go to the play because I said cunt in it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I relate so much to this character, and you're watching. I mean, it's obviously a personal film because it's a movie about an artist. You're watching the youth of someone who's going to be a great artist,
But what's
he doesn't
interesting,
have the experience yet, but he has the ambition and the focus and the drive,
it feels very personal, and it feels like maybe
Yes.
Max is West. But is he a poor guy? Does he come from blue collar? It sounds like he's like a rich Texas guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely always wearing fucking suits like Max Fisher, so I assume it's fairly close.
When I see him, he just seems like a guy I wouldn't like.
I know. I was thinking about that too. I was like, he looks like a hipster douchebag.
Yeah,
and I guess
the movies have gotten quite hipster douchebaggery to me.
Yes, and they are hipster, and even these movies are a little hipstery, but like,
Of course,
they're also just fucking hilarious. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about like, wow, I should hate him. And I guess I do hate his later stuff, but like his early stuff is just so funny. Like Max Fisher, much like Walter and Big Lebowski, literally every line is funny. Every line he says is just like Gene Hackman and Royal Tenenbaums. Literally every line they say is hilarious.
No, I mean the scene. I mean, it became the famous scene because I remember it in the trailer. I remember this movie so well, like watching the trailer over and over again, and going to see it. I have such a strong memory of watching it with my friend Derek and Jason Papil and Mike Robinson.
Me too. I remember Mike El Sharif, Ben Potash. I remember the day I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, it was such an effective movie. And by the way, Royal Tenenbaums I saw 4 times in the theaters. I was just obsessed with it.
Jesus.
I just kept going to the movie, but fuck, now I lost my goddamn thought. But see, the scene, it was like the scene that everyone saw in the trailer. So we all knew the line when it was coming. But the scene at dinner with Luke Wilson, because the OR scrubs was in the trailer. Yeah. But that entire sequence is some of the best comedy ever written. Every line. You want me to pass the creamer, Doc? So curly. I wrote a hit play and directed it. I mean, I'm not sweating it either. There's so many because you weren't invited. It's like unbelievable. And then Bill Murray's reactions. Take it easy, Max.
Take it easy, Max. Well, also, bringing up the host. I'm sorry we had 4 people. We were only intending 3, but I'm sorry we had to add another person to the host. It's just like
somebody invited himself along.
Yeah, let's talk before we've talked about all how emotional it is. We got to talk about how funny. Like I feel like we haven't
we started doing that a minute ago.
Well, I just keep on doing it. I mean, like to me, I don't know. It's like this is a movie too where you watch it, you're like, oh, I remember every line in this movie. Like every line is somewhat memorable, you know?
I've probably watched this movie 75 times because it just, and this is the difference with Royal Tenenbaums. Royal Tenenbaums has a lot of down points where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this scene, right, whatever. This movie, Rushmore, every single scene I love. There's not one dud of a scene. There's not one slow scene. The soundtrack is also fucking amazing. All that British
Music
invasion
plays
stuff.
such, I forget how much music plays as big a part to Wes Anderson as it does to Scorsese. And it's such a huge part of the movie, you know?
It's amazing. The a quick one while he's away. That whole thing, the Who song, when they're having that battle back and forth, when he cuts the brakes and the bees, and he respects it. And you are forgiven. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
just amazing. Those cut breaks.
and
It's just
I
so
mean,
good.
let's talk about like, yeah, I think the moment where Bruce Willis has some amazing facial expressions in the movie, and the moment he sees the bees and he smiles and he's so proud, like he's like smiles at like, and then suddenly gets angry, but he's like feels this moment of like pride, kind of that he would go so far. Is such an incredible emotion to express in that moment.
That, and it also feels like he's kind of excited about, like, okay, it's on.
Hello.
Here we go. Oh, fuck your fucking dumb internet. Are you there?
Yeah. That oh yeah, yeah. I took it as just yeah. It's such a yeah. I love that. I love that moment. The moment where he am I broken up? Can you hear me?
No, I hear you. Let's go.
The moment he when he asked for the money, the 35,000.
Oh god, yeah. And he's like, I'll give you $2,800.
But that look he gives where he's like, it's really hard for him to write it, the check, but he's still like it's just such an incredible his acting. How he did not win an Academy Award for this is insane. Bruce Willis should have won an Academy. Bill Murray should have won. This is some of the best acting ever. And frankly, I feel like in other movies, he's just playing that part over and over again. It's just with such a, but this is like the peak Bill Murray performance. Every line is incredible when he has the 2 cigarettes in his mouth and he's just like, I've been a little lonely these days. like that. She's my Rushmore Max. I'm in love with her. The emotion he puts into those lines, it's top notch acting. Was he even fucking nominated?
No, I don't think so. But
fuck the Oscars in the.
Oh, you keep freezing. Hilarious place to freeze.
I know.
You just freeze like mouth open, like. But no, I mean, he should have been. And yeah, that elevator scene where they go to, which is another great turning point when he goes to the hospital to visit whatever Brian Cox, and either Ronnie or Donnie, and he's just pouring the nip into his Coke. He lights 2 cigarettes at once, and then one of the most touching lines of the movie when he goes, "She's in love with the dead guy, anyways. You know, it's sweet, but it's fucked up." And are you okay? I'm a little bit lonely these days.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lonely these days. It's just one of the great. Yeah, the fact that he did not get nominated or win is like insane. Yeah.
Also, fun little clothing nuggets where Bill Murray has the same colored tie and shirt the entire movie, except for the very end of the last play. His tie is slightly off colored from his shirt, and it matches Max's. Max and him are both wearing the same colored tie and shirt.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so I think they sort of sync up finally at the end. They're sort of connected to the same guy, and it implies some amount of hope that he's changed just a tiny amount.
Well, it's also like he's changed a tiny amount, and you know, the beautiful thing with Max Fisher is after his narcissistic tantrum, he gives this excitement and this joy to Bill Murray. He helps Bill Murray try to win her, and it's almost like the gift he really gives Bill Murray is that sense of that overwhelming joy and excitement for life that he literally gets Bill Murray to spend $7 million on the aquarium, and Bill Murray gets upset, and Max Fisher's like, is that all you're willing to spend? You know, like that's the gift, Max. Once Max Fisher gets over his narcissistic tantrum, that's the real gift he gives Bill Murray is, I'm going to help you win her with my joy, my childlike joy of life that you've lost. I'm going to give that to you, which is what he's giving to him the whole movie in a way. But like, that's the real gift, you know?
Right. That's why I feel like that moment with the bees is a little bit like that. Like he's like,
yeah,
okay, like it gives him a little bit of it's something to do. He's like, all right, let me think of something to get him back. I'm gonna go slice his break. So it gives him kind of meaning for a moment.
Yes, I saw it a different way, but I dig that interpretation too. I maybe I actually think that's more correct. I think there is this interest, like the movie has such a cosmic connection between them two, you know, this youth bringing life back to this old man, and the old man showing love to the youth. Like there is this, you really watch this profound connection between the two of them and how it works in the movie. And it makes the movie so fucking deep.
And that's
And
what's so great about, by the end, they're literally dressed the same.
yeah, yes, that I love that. Yeah, no, there's this like real deep like spiritual connection between the two of them that really is like the core of the movie. And it just so, and it's, you know, it's never really spoken, you know, it's just like right away Bill Murray is just like, what's your what's your secret? He's
Right.
like, you got to find one thing. For me, that's Rushmore, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
Which is a great joke, by the way.
yeah.
His life's devotion is going to Rushmore.
He gives him Rushmore.
Few little things that I love. One is when he's building the aquarium, he's chopping down trees that have little red, they've clearly just been planted. Like there's little red tags on them and shit. And like they're brand new, there's fresh soil. I mean, he's literally, these things that describe his character, he's literally cutting trees that somebody just took the time to plant. Then there's a great moment where he's going to put flowers on his mother's grave. He literally hops the fence and steps directly on someone else's grave, which is such a great
interesting
way to show this kid is like literally just unaware of anybody else's feelings or he's such a self-centered kid. He's literally steps on someone's grave to get to his mother's grave.
It is like it is interesting that the cemetery's in it a lot. Is the cemetery in his backyard? It seems like it's very close to his house.
Yeah, he's got that channel, and he set up steps so he can just walk over there, which is another great thing. That's like shows that he's spending a lot of time there, and he writes there.
Yeah, the cemetery is in his backyard, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's which it's you know, it's funny. There's a Dylan song called I don't know if I remember the lyrics exactly, but it's called Nobody Except You. Have you heard it?
I'm sure I have, but I don't know it too well.
It's a beautiful song, but there's a part, and I feel like this was this movie. There's a part where like I used to run and dance in the cemetery when I was a child, and it never seemed strange to me, but now I just pass mournfully by. Something like that, where basically you don't even notice it when you're a kid, and then when you're older you just see it. You know, you're playing in the cemetery as a kid, and as older you see what it is. I feel like watching this movie, I just noticed the cemetery. As I'm older, I just see the cemetery so much more in the movie. I'm like, I didn't even see it as a kid. I ignored it because you don't think about death. And now you're like, oh, this movie's like half set at a graveyard. You see the graveyard as you get older.
And there's also this sweet moment where he was going to have, I mean, this other beautiful thing. I mean, this movie is just so brilliant and layered, but when he has Bill Murray, he's like, when did I say to meet you? And he's like, you said you wanted to meet me right here. And it's because he's sitting at his mother's grave that he's completely forgotten about this other beef because he realizes this real situation. And he has a tree set up to kill him. But it feels like once he sat there and contemplated this, his mother's death, it's like that's meaningless to him.
Death, it's the thing you've always said when you talk about Buddhism, when you think about time and death, it makes you transcend your pettiness and your anger. Right. You know what I mean? And it leads to that beautiful moment. And what a brilliant, this is like to have such a beautiful moment at that cemetery, and to have Bill Murray say she's my Rushmore, Max, and have Max Fisher go, she was mine too. Have this beautiful moment that still ends with the tree falling over, to combine something so Looney Tunes cartoony with something so dark and beautiful is like, that's pure Wes Anderson. Like no one else can really capture that, put so much emotion into something that still has like a cartoony nature to it. You know what I mean? Like the tree falling over, you know?
But that's my beef with the later movies. This could be a good segue to Royal Tenenbaums, where it starts to become, those lines become a little more blurred, where it becomes like, wait, what is this movie? Is this supposed to be sweet and somewhat reality based, or is this completely sketch comedy here? Which is what happens in Royal Tenenbaums a little bit, but it's still great. Then after that, it just becomes like, what is this? It's like, this is a cartoon, or it's funny, or it's not. These ones combine it so well.
I also, as much as I think Rushmore is close to perfect, I actually think you see a little of the problem in Rushmore, and then we can talk about Royal Tenenbaums. It is a little too cartoony that he's trying to actually kill him.
Right.
Like, because then you're like when he cuts off the brakes and the tree, I guess you're like, oh, I guess technically if you're looking at the reality of the world, he's trying to murder Bill Murray. And I think that's the movie I think the weakest part of the movie is when I don't mind that there's revenge, but when the revenge makes it seem like it's like murder, that's when you're getting a little too cartoony in those moments. You know what I mean?
The break thing feels a little bit more real, because it's like that could just be insane, and maybe he's not there's no highway or whatever, but the tree thing is
The
a
tree
little more
thing, yeah.
cartoony,
Even though I
but you
just said that
sort
was
of
great, but
sort of but you sort of buy it. But that's where it starts to get more ridiculous. My least favorite joke in the movie that people love, and I just never got, was when he runs up and spikes the basketball in the kid. It just felt like they gave the script to a comedian to do punch up. It doesn't feel necessary to me. And
right.
even when I watched it then, I remember being like, wait, why does he do that? It almost feels like a Naked Gun type joke, which Royal Tenenbaums, I have a few complaints like that. But it just
Yeah.
is like he's on the phone having a conversation, which feels like a Taxi Driver homage, by the way, when he's on the payphone and it's down that long hallway. There's a
Oh
few
yeah, yeah.
homages. There's also On the Waterfront when he tells Herman's wife about the thing. She's wearing the scarf over her head and you can't hear
Oh
because
yeah.
of traffic.
Oh
And
yeah.
then The Godfather, of course, when he's like, "Can you get me off the hook for old time's sake?"
Oh yeah.
So there's a few old references.
Which is an
But
amazing thing to
that
say.
scene where all of a sudden he's on the phone, all of a sudden he just like jumps up and spikes the basketball. I guess it's to show his childishness, or he wants to take advantage of a kid. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
kind
like
of
I guess
like, all right, I guess I don't think that needs to be in there.
I mean, I guess metaphorically, it's like him about to crash, destroy a kid's dream. Max Fisher's love. But like,
Right.
I don't know. It seemed like something where Bill Murray's just like, I don't know, being a dick. But yeah,
He's like, this will be funny.
but I will say, I mean, God, we got to move on. But there's just a couple. I will say, in terms of cinematicness, I mean, one of the great scenes is him jumping into the pool. We never even talked about that, which
Oh
is
yeah,
a
that song is great.
graduate, a bit of a graduate
Yes.
homage, I guess. In
And he
that
has an
sense.
underwater shot in every movie.
Yeah, but that scene is like, I try to write screenplays. I try to like show everything through dialogue, and sometimes it's like not that cinematic. And he shows everything you need to know about his relationship with his family in a non-dialogue moment, and that's pure cinema. To not say anything between him and the wife, not show it, just literally have him throwing golf balls in, standing up, see his wife talking to a younger guy, see his kids be obnoxious, and then see him just jump into the pool with that song that says everything you need to know, and it's captured purely by imagery, no dialogue. That's
It's
such a
great.
great sequence.
Oh, and you left out one of the best parts. The way the kids open the presents is also fucking amazing.
Oh,
And that they received a crossbow for their 15th birthday. Just beautiful. And he's this guy that's worth $10 million. He's wearing Budweiser bathing suit.
And yeah,
And he jumps
Budweiser,
into
yeah,
the cigarette also.
cigarette and the Budweiser that shows, his blue collar roots, while he's living in this rich family he hates. Oh, it's fucking great.
It's perfect. Yeah. He's
and
this
one of
white
the
trash guy.
and the other thing I totally forgot, like one of the great things about Wes Anderson, the framing of every scene, the mise en scène, or how it all looks. Every shot looks like a painting. It's just so beautifully framed.
Yeah, it's great. And again, later on, I feel like he got too into that. That became too much of it.
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about Royal Tenenbaums. Okay. So I'll just say straight up, I think Royal Tenenbaums is hilarious. It makes me laugh so much. I don't think it works emotionally. I think Rushmore is funny and works emotionally. Royal Tenenbaums is funny and not emotionally really moving at all.
Yeah, there's things that are touching. I found it more emotional when I was young. I feel like it's hard. I don't want to criticize the movie too hard because I feel like I've changed, or maybe that is a
Yeah.
criticism of the movie. It just doesn't hold up as well. Like Rushmore, I hadn't watched it in probably a couple of years. Like I said, I've probably seen it 60 times. I know every single line, but I still was like crying and felt the emotion differently than I did before. Royal Tenenbaums, there's parts where I used to feel emotional. I just don't now. It becomes a little more cartoony. And this is the first time I've ever watched it and thought this. I actually think Ben Stiller's a little miscast.
Yes. Can I? This is a big problem in the movie, and I felt this when I was a kid. It doesn't make sense that this family just gave birth to a Jew, this Jewy guy, and he just doesn't seem connected to the family at all. He's his own Jewish rhythm, and I think he kind of tanks the movie because he's just like, everyone else is like that weird, quirky, waspy character, and then suddenly there's this like neurotic Jew who's like from a completely different family, and it makes it doesn't feel like a family.
No, he doesn't feel as dark. He's supposed to be dark in his own way, and I just feel like he's completely outclassed by these other actors. Like Luke Wilson is pitch perfect and the best character in the movie. I mean, pitch perfectly dark and sweet, and he still loves his dad, and he's nice with the family. I actually relate to this character so much that, again, the unrequited love, or whatever that word is, he's just in love with this person he shouldn't be in love with, but also he's kind to his fans. He's happy to take a photo.
Yeah.
And that moment in the cemetery where the guy goes, "Hey, bomber," and he goes,
Yeah.
He's really sweet, and he had this breakdown. That character is so well written and performed and developed. And then Ben Stiller is like a cartoon. He's just running around all wacky and he's silly, and then he slaps the hand. It's just he's like a sketch. It's like a sketch comedy with these actors that are putting these world-class performances.
He's in a Judd Apatowish kind of thing.
Yes.
And everyone else is in a Wes Anderson movie. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And another problem is, and this is why the movie kind of really gets hurt, is because Ben Stiller's relationship with Gene Hackman is kind of the core of the movie. And the movie ultimately depends on Ben Stiller forgiving Gene Hackman. That really is what the movie ultimately is about. And it ends on that scene where Ben Stiller is looking at him when he's dying and no longer seeing him as a monster and forgiving him. But the problem is, Gene Hackman is so fucking likable in this movie. You forgive him right away. Then right. Ben Stiller looks like a bitch. He looks like a bitch because that's the thing. Like, I think it's the problem with the movie, that Gene Hackman is so hilarious that you don't really feel the cruelty of him. You just love his character. And Ben Stiller looks like an asshole. And so instead of like, the movie would work emotionally if it feels like a challenge to forgive Gene Hackman, and it's a struggle and you connect to Ben Stiller's struggle to forgive him. And so by the end, you're like, oh, this is a challenge to forgive an asshole. My father's an asshole, but I finally accept the challenge. But instead, you're just waiting for Ben Stiller to forgive him. You've already forgiven him from the minute. You just love him. You love Gene Hackman and you hate Ben Stiller.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You're starting to break up a little bit.
Did it fucking freeze again?
This audio's fine. I think we're fine. The audio's fine, but then you just look all choppy, which is fine.
But so, yeah. So did you hear what I said though? Like,
I heard everything you said. Yes. And I completely agree. But, and then also additionally, like we said, the darkness of the other two just comes across so well. And they're dark and they're quiet and they're reserved and they just look defeated by life and depressed. And Ben Stiller just it's not in any reality. It's ridiculous.
You know what it is? There's a kind of sad stoicism to Gwyneth Paltrow and Luke Wilson,
Of course, yes.
And there's none of that with Ben Stiller's just a whiny Jew. And it's just like, he's like in a Neil Simon play and like everyone else is in a different thing. And it's just, yeah, it really, I mean, this is a problem with casting. Like casting is so crucial. And I'm like, this movie like miscast a huge core of the movie. And it kind of basically, that's what's so scary about casting. You made one bad casting decision and now the whole emotional core of the movie is kind of lost.
I'm glad you agree because I was worried I was going to get pushback on this one. And I also think as a kid, it's so funny, but the Eli Cash storyline just doesn't move me nearly as much. It just also feels very cartoony by the end where his face is painted and he goes flying through the thing. And also that scene where Ben Stiller's chasing him is just two goofball Looney Tunes and like the priest falling down the steps. I'm like, what is going on here? This is like so goofy. Oh, also like Danny Glover falling in the hole. It's like a Looney Tunes thing. It feels like a Naked Gun sketch. I'm like, it just tonally is off.
I mean, he does. I mean, obviously he tries to mix it too, the cartoony with the emotional. I think sometimes it works. I think with Danny Glover, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say because like you're like Danny Glover's pretty old falling into that. Like,
yeah, he'd be shot. His hips would be annihilated.
I find the ending offensive too, just because. And this is where the cartooniness really makes no sense because, and maybe people are going to say I'm being too literal or whatever, but no, this movie has so much to do with grief, right? And death. And then they kill his fucking dog and he's just like kind of annoyed. Like, I don't know, like, is it just like is Wes Anderson not an animal lover? Killing a dog is like a really fucked up thing. It's not just like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they'd be devastated and they've been through all this stuff and there's not really much sign of reality of two kids' mother dying. And the kids survived the crash. Like they would be just completely fucked and there's no darkness from him. It's just silly. And also just that chase scene where he's chasing Eli and then decides to not be mad at him and just lay next to him. It doesn't make sense.
And Matt, like that's the problem. Like, yeah, it really hurts you because the dog is ultimately becoming just like a metaphor. And once they kill the dog, he can kind of finally let go of his wife, I guess, But like, it's just like that's a dog. You know what I mean? Like that's a dog that their pet. Like what?
And they had previously when Rachel was still around.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it would be like
exactly.
the connection would be like just completely devastating.
And then I'm like, is this a sociopathic family? Like, no one cares that their dog died. Like, that's where you can't, like, it's like, I mean, just think about, like, that's where the cartooniness hurts it. Cause it's like, you can't make a movie about death and grief and then have them completely ignore something like this, like the death of a dog. You just can't do that. It just doesn't register.
But what is effective as far as loss and mourning, that's so subtle, is Royal's loss of his mother. That
Yeah.
is beautiful with just the painting. And then she's like, my middle name's Helen. He's like, that was my mother's middle name. And she's like, I know. And then his desire to go to the cemetery. Who wants to go down to the cemetery? And she was a tough old broad. I mean, you can see that affect him, and he's very similar to Max Fisher. Royal Tenenbaum is incredibly similar to Max Fisher. They're both can't get over the loss of their mother. They're both schemesters. They both cheat. It almost feels like Royal could be an adult, elderly version of Max Fisher.
I think he is. In fact, I think the clue to that is he's wearing the Max Fisher beret at one point
when they're driving the go-kart. Yes, which he drove the go-kart. He had a go-kart.
Oh, right.
club.
Yeah. No, it is a version of Max Fisher. And, but that being said, even though the movie doesn't work emotionally, I think it's so fucking funny. That part alone where she's like, what's my middle name? Do you even know my middle name? And he's like, it's a trick question. You don't have one. And she's like, Helen.
Like that was a joke in the trailer. I remember that in the trailer also. But yeah, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with this movie. I love the Alec Baldwin voiceover. I mean, there's a bunch of great moments in the movie, hilarious jokes. I mean, Eli Cash doesn't work on an emotional level, but he is hilarious. There's a bunch of great jokes. You say you're on mescaline? Yeah. He's like all day.
No, he's fucking hilarious. No, he is fucking hilarious. Like this movie is like works. And that's the thing. It's like sometimes movies work comedically, but the comedy kind of can hurt the emotional thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this like
I mean, the tennis breakdown is also one of my favorite scenes. He's taken off both his shoes and one of his socks. And then the way he serves the ball and then just throws the racket is just, I mean, that's comedy gold. It's so fucking good. He's taken off both his shoes and one of his socks.
And Bill Murray's relationship with that kid is also just hilarious. Like when he puts the kid with the weird disease and he puts the blocks in the wrong way. And he's like, oh boy, like he's just so excited by how mentally handicapped.
He goes, where's that red one gonna go? That and the subtle delivery of, I'm not colorblind, am I? Yes, I'm afraid you are. Like 3 rooms away.
And at the end, when they're like, there's a hilarious part at the end where he's giving the speech and they're like, with the kid, and they ask like, does he have what? They ask him some question. And Bill Murray's like, oh, God, no. He has no.
Oh, yeah. Can the boy tell time? Oh,
no.
Dudley's World.
Oh, God, no. That's like the beginning of Life Aquatic. It's like getting into the science kind of like. But yeah, I mean, there's so many hilarious parts. I mean, Gene Hackman, the way he talks to those kids is fucking hilarious. Let's shag ass. I guess it's an old fuck you to, like he's just saying to those kids, this is a real fuck you to the old man, I guess.
And his criticism of her play when she's 10 is amazing.
God.
He goes, well, don't be upset. That's just one man's opinion. It's her father.
But that's also the problem is that like we're laughing so much that you never really feel the cruelty of Gene Hackman on a visceral level. So it never becomes moving by the end because it's not a challenge to forgive him. I think that's the problem. Like, even shooting the BB gun at Ben Stiller, like they want that to be the big reason Ben Stiller has trouble forgiving him and shit. But you're like, it's just funny.
Right.
And it's funny. And it's funny that it's still in there. And then, yeah, it's just like, that's the problem. It's like, I think for it to work, they would have had to maybe sacrifice some comedy and actually shown some real like cruelty. And they never really do. So it never can have that catharsis at the end.
Also, one thing that's sad to me that I always wonder about, like, it feels like he dies shortly after that scene. Like, he actually ended up dying pretty quickly. Like, because the Royal.
Yeah.
Like, because like the priest's foot still hasn't healed. And it just feels like, wait, was that like 3 weeks later? That's like,
I think it was 6 months later or something.
Yeah. I'm like, that's like sad on another level that he was like saying I'm dying. But I mean, one of the line that works the best in the movie to me that touched me so much when I was young and still does now, because it is like Buddhism and Stoicism, where he's like, this closeness to death has brought me new insight. And he's like, but you were never dying. And he's like, I'm gonna live, which is great. I mean, that's the basis of stoicism, is like you
Yes.
imagine your own death and understand your own death, and that allows you to be like, but I'm alive today. And that's what is so beautiful. And there's more Buddhism and Stoicism in this movie.
Exactly. And in a sense, just like the way Max Fisher's gift to Bill Murray at the end is giving him that joy and that excitement to try to win back the lady. Gene Hackman, as much of an asshole he is the life force in the movie, and he is saving the family at the end by showing them the joy of life, by having the kids. He is that javelina on the wall, which becomes a symbol. They take it down. That javelina is that animalistic, fun joy of life, and they've taken it down because they've just focused so much on perfectionism and wanting life to be perfect. And Gene Hackman comes back to remind them that life isn't perfect, but you got to have fun and enjoy it. Just kind of like the mice. I feel like that's a symbol too. The dotted mice is just not perfect. You know what I mean? You can't control everything, and you got to accept the chaos of life a little. And Gene Hackman brings that back to them and kind of saves them in that sense.
Yeah, and also it's so beautiful that when he's like, that was probably the best 6 days of my life, and you see
Oh,
this
that part's
window
incredible.
into what his life could have been if he wasn't so distracted in this thing where he felt like the kids were going to take away that life. He wanted to
Yeah.
play dice and womanize and run across the street against the red light, which is an amazing sequence, that whole
Yeah.
sequence. So he wanted to live his life that way. But you see this beauty of like, oh, wait a minute, I could have had that with my kids if I'd stuck around. That could have been a beautiful adventure of raising 3 children. But
Yes.
he thought, like so many people have this thought of, I want the freedom. I don't want to have to raise children. I want to be able to
Yes.
go to wherever he is when he gets stabbed and have all the Calcutta, and I want to travel to all these places. And of course, later, until it's too late, he realizes, oh, it could have been fun mixing it up with the kids and being in the house.
Which is that voiceover is great in that moment when Alec Baldwin's like, he realized in that moment that he was telling the truth. This great idea that like Gene Hackman thinks he's scheming the whole time
Mm-hmm.
when really he actually genuinely is trying to get back his family. He doesn't even realize it. You know what I mean? Like he thinks of everything in terms of a scheme. He doesn't even realize, oh no, this is actually what I'm trying to do,
Right, and his acceptance of he actually does love Angelica Houston, and what he should do for her is to grant her this divorce and accept this new husband, and it's going to be the best relationship they've ever had. Of course, he dies so shortly after. I wish he died like years later, but whatever.
And well, you got to accept it. It's not perfect. You got to accept he dies 6 months later. One of the, I actually think a powerful line, even though Ben Stiller, I don't really buy his journey. One of the most powerful lines for me still, and I think about that all the time, is when he looks at Gene Hackman and he goes, "It's been a really rough year." Like, I feel that sentence all the time. Like, anytime if you really were to talk to me, deep down, I just want to say it's been a really rough year and just kind of start crying.
Yeah, and that's the first time he actually says it. I just hate his delivery. I just think he's not a good enough actor. I think Ben Stiller is great. I think he's great comedically. Like I said, he's just outclassed by Luke Wilson, who I want to talk more about. But the best line with Chaz and Royal to me is when he's revealed to be a fraud and he's leaving. The best line that maybe the movie is when he says, "Take it easy on those boys. I don't want this happening to you." And it really
Right.
gets through to him. It is a thing of like, you gotta let go. You gotta do some letting go, or else they're gonna be a fucking mess.
That whole sequence is beautiful. You got Dylan, that weird Dylan song from Self-Titled, which is just like an instrumental song that's beautiful.
Mhm.
It's a
Wigwam.
beautiful Wigwam. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. And you have Gene Hackman when he goes to Angelica Houston. He's just like, she's like, "Why'd you do this?" And he's like, "I wanted to get back my family." And I was broke. Like him just admitting, like deep down, like, you know what I mean? And the song, that's a beautiful, the song, I actually think the music in this is even more effective than Rushmore. Maybe I just like the songs more, but I feel like the songs in this are like the part where
No,
Gwyneth
you're
Paltrow
wrong.
comes off the bus and they play Nico. I mean, that's an incredible moment.
Yeah, Jack. There's a story about Jackson Brown was watching that movie, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I used to play just like that." And then he realized it was his song. He forgot giving them permission to use it. He was like, "That sounds like my song." Are you a
One of the
Jackson Brown
greatest.
guy? Every time I listen to Jackson Brown, I'm like, "How is Raanan not completely obsessed with Jackson Brown?"
I love him. I mean, I don't. I need to know more, but the song. He's one of those guys where like every song of his that I've heard, I love is like my favorite song.
I'll make you a tape. He's the best songwriter. He lyrically he makes Dylan look like fucking my mother.
I mean, that's I can't even pretend to hear that, but he is great. I mean, these days is such a beautiful fucking song.
It is, but no, he's better
So, what
than
do you want to
Dylan.
talk about, Luke Wilson?
Yeah, I mean Luke Wilson, that character is maybe the best character Wes Anderson ever wrote to me. I just completely love it because his sweetness to his father and his desire to still love his father to get everyone else to. And that's another great joke too. He's like, well, he's upstairs right now. They're all he's saying, what if dad came to live with us? And they're all saying, no, it's a bad idea. And he's like, okay, well, he's upstairs. I guess I can just kick him out. Is great, but he still feels this connection because of course he got to go on those outings
Yes.
as a kid, so he has this deep affection and he's trying to get everyone to forgive, and he's completely depressed, but he's always kind to everybody.
Yes.
And then the best piece of Wes Anderson's filmmaking in any of his movies is that suicide sequence. It is so amazing. And you could feel, I remember watching it the first time, like something fucking different is going on here. Because it turns into like a horror movie all of a sudden with that blue
Right.
lighting and those crazy jump cuts when he's cutting his hair and shaving. And that line, I'm going to kill myself for tomorrow, which evidently is from a French film.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, I guess there's some French film that this movie is like partly based on, and that's a line directly borrowed from it. But that it's like he made a horror movie for like 70 seconds with those flashes to Mordecai and her getting off the
Yeah.
bus. It is like a brilliantly dark piece of filmmaking with Elliott Smith, who fucking killed himself 2 years later, possibly.
Yes. No, I think he definitely did. Right.
I think there's I just read about it. There's some
Murder?
mystery because he was stabbed in the chest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
supposedly his name is misspelled in the suicide note.
That's all bullshit. He definitely killed him. Did you hear his last album? It's literally a suicide note put to music.
Well,
Like one of
somebody
the
was
songs
like,
is just like, I'm gonna kill myself.
well, that's a good way to use. That's a good thing to use if you're going to murder somebody. But anyways, I mean, how ironic that they used Elliott Smith for this suicide soon, who killed himself later.
Yeah. It's a good scene. But once again, it's like
Good.
it's
scene.
weird. I mean, part of me did feel like this movie does have cartoony elements, and then it gets so dark there. But I think it works. But then it's like, once again, it reminds me, you can't have them not care about a dog getting run over, but have a suicide. You know what I mean? It's just like,
No, I don't know what you mean. What?
Like, if you're gonna have the gravity of a movie to have someone attempt suicide, the fact that they then in a couple
Oh, I
scenes
see.
later have people not care about a dog dying, it's like, yeah, it's kind of tonally it doesn't work. That's a powerful scene. And I think the stuff between him and Gwyneth Paltrow is good. Is like moving. It shows also them caught in the past where they're, I guess it was around the time of the divorce they go to the museum and hide together. So this moment meant so much to Luke Wilson. It's like this one comfort in his life that's full of chaos, and he's caught in that. Yeah, no, I think that's a really powerful part. But once again, I feel like Ben Stiller, when he attempts suicide, Ben Stiller's just there going, being so flip.
Right. Wait, did you freeze again? Oh, fuck. Raanan froze. Wait, what did you say?
Ben Stiller, like I forget how flip Ben Stiller was when they when he's like at the hospital. He's like, "You'll leave a note," like he just doesn't give a shit.
But here's an interesting thing about that scene that I noticed yesterday that I thought was interesting. So it shows him kill himself, and then it cuts to everybody rushing to the hospital. And Ben Stiller, the car is moving around a corner, and he's putting his seatbelt on. He's in the passenger seat. He's putting his seatbelt on, but he didn't take the time. We know how obsessed with safety he is.
Yeah,
But he didn't take the time to put his seatbelt on before they started moving, which implies that he's like, just go.
right.
Just get there. So he has this love for his brother that he's like, I'll figure out my seatbelt after. We just got to get there. And once he's there and realizes he's okay, he goes back to being his flippant self. I thought that was a subtle way to show that he is moved and cares about his brother deeply until he sees, and now he's just kind of jealous of the attention he's getting.
And I get that, but once again, it's a moment where they're trying to be comedic, and you're like, okay, if I'm going to care about a suicide the moment before, right? Then I also have to be like, Ben Stiller's being flippant to his brother who just attempted suicide,
Right.
know? And if you can't make me care about a suicide and then be like, he's just Ben Stiller's just joking. This is a comedy. Like, you're like, that's sociopathic behavior to like give shit to a guy who just attempted suicide. Like, that's crazy. And that's where like tonally, I guess there's like a lot of problems there,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of problems in this movie tonally. And yeah, joke, silly jokes, but Yeah, that part is touching. Here's a fun fact about as a Rolling Stones guy. That album Between the Buttons, those songs don't appear back to back. They make it where
Oh,
that music is in the movie that she's listening to the
right.
record, and those aren't back to back. There's a song in between them.
That's an interesting part. Watch it. I like that part in the 10, but it is interesting that like literally they're just literally you're watching like it's like he couldn't choose a song, so he just has multiple songs played during that scene. It's kind of an interesting way to use
No, well,
music in that
one
scene.
song ends and the next one begins.
I know, but you just still it's like it's rare to see a movie where there's a
Oh,
song
you just froze
and then it
again.
just stops another song in that same scene. God damn it. Fucking
hate it.
Christ. I feel like it's like our best episode. I keep on freezing.
I feel like every time we do an episode, I'm like, this is the best one we've ever done. I think this show's great. This is the
Yeah.
podcast for me.
I think this is like this. I don't know. This one's big.
Let me see what else I got because I got a few other things. Max, Miss Gas, but I'm gonna live. Maybe I said all this stuff I wanted to say. I can't remember.
I guess we're just in complete agreement for the most part.
Stiller is putting what? Oh God, I can't even. Oh, okay, yeah. When he punches the, yeah. I think I've said most of the things.
Also, I
I
gotta say because I'm gonna get fact checked on this. It's gonna be really annoying, but like I know I keep on saying Ben Stiller is like this out of place Jew in the family, and people are gonna definitely comment before. Well, actually, Gene Hackman admits that he's part Hebrew at the end of it.
Yes,
which he
his name's
does.
Tenenbaum. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's like I know, but like at the same time, it's not a Jewy family besides fucking Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller's on a whole other level.
I watched these two movies, particularly Royal Tenenbaums. I'm like, I don't think Luke Wilson's getting the credit he deserves for like being a fucking fantastic actor. I think he should have got an Oscar nominated for this movie. I think he's like pitch perfect, unbelievable, and so moving and beautiful. That scene too, when she picks him up, is so great. When he's like, when she goes, "What's so funny?" and he shrugs, and she's like, "Well, it's nice to see you too." I mean, that's just beautiful. Also, I don't know. It's just so poignant. By
He's
the way,
an underrated performer. Yeah.
that ship he's on is the King's Pointer from Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy, where I spent a lot of my youth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. He's underrated because he's amazing in Bottle Rocket too. He's an underrated actor. I think he kind of looks a little dumb, so people don't give him the credit he deserves.
No, he's great in this movie. I love that character. It's a wonderful movie. This is the first time I watched it where I was like, oh, this doesn't, even back when I was younger, there was always scenes that I'm like, oh, this scene I don't really care about, whatever, skip. It just doesn't hold up the way Rushmore does, but it's got a lot of great jokes in it. There's a lot of really funny stuff.
It's entertaining.
There is some touching stuff. Yeah, it's entertaining.
It's hilarious as shit. Isn't it interesting though? I mean, I know the Oscars suck and all that, but isn't it interesting that like when we talk about some of the greatest characters of all time, you think like Walter, the Dude, Reese Witherspoon from Election, Max Fisher, Royal Tenenbaum. I don't think any of them got even a fucking Oscar nod. And these are the most defining characters.
It's also well documented for years until a little more recently. It's gotten a little better, but comedy gets no respect. I mean, back all the way through for.
I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like comedy because it's like comedy or not though. It's like when you think about the great characters in film history. I mean, those are the characters. Those are like the defining characters. I feel like all of them.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own is another great one. I mean, there's so many great ones. I think like Jim Carrey in Cable Guy is like an amazing performance.
Meanwhile, I haven't thought once about like Tom Hanks with AIDS and Philadelphia. Like he won for that. I haven't thought about that. And like, it's like, yeah, I feel like they,
I love that movie. I love that movie, and it's beautiful. I mean, one of the best pieces of acting ever. You hate this movie? Did we talk about this already?
I actually haven't seen it in years. But what's a movie where someone won an Academy Award and you're like,
we should do Jonathan Demme. Although we already talked about Silence of the Lambs, I think.
Yeah, we could do two others. But yeah, but I mean, the fact that Gene Hackman is like the best actor ever, and this is still like one of the greatest roles. But once again, it's like you love him just a little. In conclusion, you just love him a little too much, so it robs the movie of catharsis. Kind of, you're on the forgive train right away.
I just thought of a good director we could do. William Friedkin. We can do The Exorcist.
Oh yeah, Exorcist and French Connection.
And another great one that you might hate because it's sports, but Blue Chips is really fun.
With Nick Nolte and Shaq.
And Shaquille O'Neal, yeah. It's pretty great.
I've never seen it.
It's pretty great. I think you'd like it. Maybe you should come over. We'll watch Blue Chips.
All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, let's do it.
But anyways, we'll do that down the road. Well, I think this is good. We should wrap up with this. Is an hour and 20 minutes. We lost most people early on talking about.
Well, how many times did I freeze? How bad was it? Did it
You
ruin
froze
the
a couple times,
episode?
but your audio never did. So it's just gonna be your dumb face looking like you're taking the load to the. I think it'll be okay.
I should have spent more money for the better internet. You know.
I listen to podcasts though, like, like I'll listen to Sam Harris or Dan Harris, and they come on the beginning like, the mic fucked up, but your ears will adjust. Like Sam Harris is so good at just being like, yeah, but you'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you just say that, it's like, I don't know, stop being a cunt. Was it a big deal? You fucking.
Yeah.
It's also like when you have a conversation, a bus goes by, a train goes by, and you're not like, oh, what the fuck? What is this bullshit? You're like, it's life. I mean, just fucking keep listening. Don't worry about it.
Also, people keep complaining that we're not letting them know the movies. I mean, we're putting it on our Instagram where I have a plane fucking on the sky having the movies the next week. I mean, do they not get it? I don't know. We're posting it each week, and they're like, you got to let us know the movies. One guy was like, you ruined Manchester by the Sea for me. It's like, don't watch a pod about a movie if you haven't if we want to see it, you're fucking dope.
And it says in the description when we talk about, I don't know. It's hard to please everybody. And last night everybody was at my show, or however that joke goes.
My favorite Mitch Hedberg joke is when he's like, sometimes I think of something funny, I'll like write it down, but sometimes my pen is too far away, so I'll just convince myself what I thought of wasn't that funny.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great one.
It's just like a perfect, like him capturing just a thought. Like so much of comedy is like we all have thoughts that just come and then fly out of our head. And so much of comedy is like if you just catch a thought before it flies away and just say it out loud. Not all of them, a lot of them are nothing, but some of them are just fucking genius.
I gotta stop reading comments on the Louis episodes because
you're still reading the comments.
Every once in a while I'll go back. But some guy on the was like, oh, I never heard anybody say they don't like the second half of Boogie Nights. Then Louis says it. Now both these guys think that. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. We've been stealing our opinions from Louis. Meanwhile, there's 14,000 comments being like, you fucking idiots disagreeing with Louis. And then we agree with them on one point ever. And they're like, they're just ripping off Louis. I'm like,
my favorite thing.
We disagree with everything Louis says.
My favorite thing was when I started out, I had a joke where I was just like, life shit will shit on your dreams. That was like a line in it, And someone on a YouTube comment goes, oh, really? That sounds a lot like one of Louis' jokes. What a coincidence. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that Louis invented unhappiness. I'm sorry he was the first person to talk about life not working out. I didn't realize that. You fucking idiot.
What can you do? Yeah, some guy. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk more later, but
yeah,
we'll have him back on. It'll be fun.
I would say we should get Todd Barry on to talk about The Wrestler.
Oh yeah, get a little behind the scene. That might be nice. Get some more guests because I think people are pretty sick and tired of hearing from you. But
let's get Todd Barry on. Talk The Wrestler.
He loves talking. I love talking. Yeah. We got to talk about Pig too.
Oh my God, we'll do it a bonus at some point. Talk about Pig. If you haven't seen Pig though, fucking go see it. Best movie I've seen in a long time. Incredible.
Join the Patreon. We got some bonus stuff up there. We added a ton of people. We got 100 people on the Patreon, I think.
Oh yeah, we're fucking moving. I don't know. I didn't get money yet. I don't know how it works, but
usually you get it right after the first of the month or something, and then you send me my half.
Well, I guess I'll look through it. I don't know. I don't remember that happening, but anyway,
figure out the ad money too, because the ad it always says check your new payment, and I look on the thing, it just says $0. So I don't know how to figure that out. I'm a fucking idiot, but
we also got to get some sponsors. I mean, I actually use Blue Chew. I actually use it. Like you are fucking lying on your podcast. I fucking use it to have sex.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't need it. By the way, you gotta be careful because I've heard that Blue Chew causes stomach cancer. No,
really?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It's totally safe. But I have heard that inability to get an erection is like the canary in the coal mine for your heart health.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why I feel healthy. I wake up with a fucking rock hard boner like I'm 15 years old every day.
I don't know if it keeps me from getting a boner. Somehow it helps me. It makes me go longer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really like, I think I was okay at sex before, but now I feel like I'm making women come like the first time we have sex.
I would think the appearance of your face would help. Oh, wait, I fucked up. The appearance of their face would help you go longer.
Oh, yeah. Because they're
I really blew my zing.
But I don't blow my load anymore because of Blue Chew. help us sponsor because I actually use it.
And look at this, Liquid Death, for God's
We're
sake.
fucking doing sponsors without them fucking paying us. Fucking come and help us.
Apple, AirPods,
Smart water.
iPhone.
Uh,
What about this? Once again, peanut butter, creamy. The shit is
Fucking-
creamy as fuck.
George Costanza wallet.
Mattakit, a beach in Nantucket.
I got nothing else around me.
on.
What? Oh Jesus! Wait, you got Jeffrey Tubin me?
All right, we got to wrap it up. Rushmore #1, Royal Tenenbaums #2. Join the Patreon. I'm going to put the link in the description of the thing.
Yeah, where can we find you?
You can find me Instagram, Twitter at Joelist Comedy. And this weekend, I'm in Salt Lake City at Wise Guys. And
Oh, nice.
yeah,
That's great. Yeah, and you can catch me next. I'm on the road, but the shows are sold out, so it doesn't matter. But August 5th through 7th, I'm with Sam Morril at Comedy Off Broadway. Even though I feel like those
Nice.
are probably sold out. He's fucking like crushing it. But I'm well, fuck that. I'm headlining Comedy Off Broadway in Lexington August 8th. So I'm a nobody. So go get tickets to that. So I have people in the crowd. That's
Yeah.
August 8th at Comedy Off Broadway in Lexington. Tickets are at comedyoffbroadway.com. And then on August 9th, I'm headlining Planet of the Tapes in Louisville. Great room. You should do that whenever you're in the area.
I'd love to. I love Louisville.
Planetofthetapes.biz, I believe, is the link. But yeah, get tickets to those shows because I fucking helps if there's people in the audience. It's not just my
Hell yeah.
mom.
Join the Patreon and subscribe and stream our albums. We got albums. Stream them.
Yeah. Stream my albums and yeah. Well, this has been great. This is a great one.
Fun. All right.
Cut.